at this stage, it's become unusable in my opinion. So that's the problem that they're facing. They generated massive amount of fees, which is good for them. It's even more than Uniswap itself. It's crazy. But at the same time, they're not solving the problem of the industry. So overall, I think people are starting to realize that you cannot make money there. It's the odds are just too slim to be able to make it work. The rotation used to be that you go to Bitcoin, then you go to Ethereum, then you go to the more like large cap, then mid cap and low cap. That rotation is completely out of the water at this point. It's, there's two ways to make money, is that either you trade actively or you invest more like a buy and hold strategy, like more like an investor. Right now, being an investor in the crypto industry, unless you're investing in Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and those really big assets that are doing well, it's extremely hard to find like a good project that is scaling and keep scaling. There's almost none that do it. And the problem is that there's just too much tokens are being released on the market from previous cycle or from this cycle itself. And I think there's a limited amount of liquidity. And when people can make more money on Bitcoin itself, why risk going on to a high risk project that is just brand new and it just doesn't scale? Sometimes it scales for a little bit and then it just doesn't go anywhere after that. Because it's hard to maintain attention. There's just too much things going on around. The other thing is that if you look at the YouTube like metrics of views on the crypto influencers, retail is not back into the market. So the reason why the market is up is because of the institutional buyer on the ETF. But those institutions, they don't play in the altcoin games. So right now the rotation, like I discussed that back a while back, but the rotation used to be that you go to Bitcoin, then you go to Ethereum, then you go to the more like large cap, then mid cap and low cap. That rotation is completely out of the water at this point. It's just Bitcoin, Solana, and then meme coins. And it keeps rotating that. It skips everything else almost. And that's, to me, that's the reason, is because retail is just not back there. If you don't have millions of people spreading their wealth around, the money get concentrated on just a few assets. And those are the most recognizable asset that those institutions can buy into, basically. So it's become very hard to be like a long-term investor, like buying a very early project at this point. Yeah,
Bear
big
your
challenge.
bad news. Okay. Where do I start? So you're saying meme coins not the best place to put your money now. It seems like the meme coin phase is dying off.
No, I would not
Altcoins,
say,
you
I'm not sure I would say that. I would say new meme coin maybe are dead, but old or meme coin of this cycle, like with Bonk, Brett, those type of meme coin that have reached a certain level, I think all of the money will flow to them. They will do really well, I think. But yeah, like very new project, I think they're just the barrier to entry is just too small at this point. And so the only way at this point is to try to find tools that can enable you to identify the cabal of like users that are pumping those meme coin from zero to a few $1 billion. It's not the community that does that. It's the very wealthy crypto users that have been around for a long time that if they have $1 billion of capital, they don't mind putting $20 million to push a meme coin and keep buying for months and months until it reaches a certain size where they start cashing out. I think if you don't have those type of people in your at the early onset, I think it's really hard to do it from the community alone, to be honest. So
so ma manipulation on the meme coin side. People talk about manipulation happening on
yes,
the VC heavily backed altcoins as well. I mean, you're not giving me that many opportunities here, Patrick. Where am I going to put my money? Is it going to be Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana? I mean, are we just going to be looking at these networks that potentially could be an ETF and just kind of focus more on the institutional side? Which, there's some rumblings with, like, for instance, Sui, even rumors around Injective, but I'm talking about outside of the 100 market cap altcoins. I mean, are you pretty much saying hold off on that right now?
I think until retail really comes back, and at this point, when will that be? Like, because that's one thing I'll come back to at some point, but people keep saying that the bull market happened so many weeks or months after the halving of the Bitcoin. I did the research and the analysis in the last few days, and it doesn't seem to be true. What it's correlated to is the US election. So from what I've seen, between 360 days to 300 and like basically 400 days after the election, the US election, that's when you reach the peak of the bull market over the last several times. So it seemed because the halving itself is spread across like it used to be early on, like around December, November. Now it's in April. Meanwhile, the peak of the bull run is still concentrated around November and December of the 4-year cycle, which is in line to be about a year after the US election. So I think a lot of people have been fooled saying and tracking too much of the halving cycle, and maybe that's why the the accumulation phase right now has been going on for so long, because the halving happened so early, like in April, compared to previous cycle. So that's interesting in that regard, and that also imply that retail is just not back there because it will happen once they actually have money. And right now, people are financially struggling all over the world. Inflation is not what the government is disclosing, and people really struggle. So the recession, there I again talk about it. It's been going on for what now, almost 2 years. So the thing, if people cannot afford it, they cannot come back. So that until they do, and we need stimulus to start happening, because right now, when the government print money, they print money to buy the government bonds. Who end up with that money in order to buy crypto? Nobody. It's the government itself. So we need the actual money to be printed to go in the hand of people who will deploy it into crypto before they can come back, in my opinion. Or just the marketing machine of BlackRock will start kicking in at some point. Because obviously, when Bitcoin keep printing new high week over week, people will start paying attention at some point. So I would expect maybe that's November or December of this year, things start to kick in. So we have a bit more struggle ahead. I have a suspicion.
What's your prediction for Bitcoin price by the end of the year? Do you have one?
Yeah, for me, it's been 200, around 250K for quite a while. Uh, and I was starting to believe, like we discussed that in the past, because of the gap rules changing and the ETF, I was thinking maybe there would be a super cycle that lasts more than 4 years. But the thing, when I investigate more about the cycles, it's the real estate cycle that is driving a lot of the various markets. And that's on the 18-year cycles. And right now we are expecting maybe a downturn into that in 2025, 2026. So if that happens, regardless of how well crypto is doing, I think everything will probably crash potentially because you're comparing a market of 600 trillion to a market of 1 or 2 trillion. So obviously, people don't want to lose their house. The last thing they will want to sell is their house at a discount basically, or at a loss. So they will sell everything else before that. So that include their crypto. So I think if the let's say if the mortgage and the real estate market crash in 2025, 2026, it's going to drive everything down, like all risk assets.
Well, we talk about the positives, we talk about the negatives, we hit on everything here on this channel. Patrick, as always, thanks so much for joining and giving us an update. We of course we talk on a weekly basis, so those of you watching, if you enjoy the content, if you enjoy the episodes with Patrick, definitely come back week after week. We'll be here providing you the latest news and talking about what to do about that news.